Big Brother is almost back, and you know what that means. A new group of house guests is about to move into a house with no phones, no internet, no privacy, cameras everywhere, competitions, alliances, betrayals, paranoia, and Julie Chen looking like the glamorous final boss she is every single Thursday night. But while Big Brother is a game of strategy, it is also one of the most fascinating examples on reality television of what happens when we put people under pressure. What we are doing in this video is we are talking about mental health themes across this classic summer escape show. And I want to be very clear before we start. At no point in this video will I be diagnosing anyone. I will not be saying this person has this disorder or this person is mentally ill. It is unfair, unethical, and inaccurate to take clips from an edited TV show and live feeds and apply it to a diagnosis of somebody that I do not know. I may be a licensed therapist, but I will not be discussing any diagnosis that the house guests themselves have not already shared with the public. What I will be talking about are stress responses, isolation, emotional regulation, bullying, trauma, sleep deprivation, impulse control, and what happens when you are placed in an extreme environment where every single conversation matters and every mistake can potentially follow you for the rest of your life. So ahead of the new season, I want to take a look at 5 examples of mental health themes across the Big Brother US seasons. This video is not a ranking, it is simply 5 examples of mental health moments. And again, I want to stress, this video is not judging whether or not a person is good or bad or applying a mental health disorder diagnosis to anyone. It is about looking at how the Big Brother house can expose, worsen, or highlight different mental health themes. So let's get into it. Here are 5 examples of mental health moments in Big Brother US. We are going to start with going all the way back to season 2, which a lot of people tend to think is season 1, and Justin.
Yesterday, producers expelled one of 12 house guests for breaking the rules.
This was only the 2nd season of the US version of the show, and the first season most people watched and remembered. The game was still figuring out what it was. The producers were still figuring out boundaries. The house guests were still figuring out what it meant to live on camera 24/7. And during the season, Justin was expelled from the house after an incident involving Krista and a knife. During a late-night interaction while Krista appeared intoxicated, Justin held a knife near her throat and asked, "Would you get mad if I killed you?" Krista said no in the moment, but production stepped in and Justin was removed from the game.
This is one of those moments that it's hard to believe ever aired because reality TV today has changed so much. Contestant expectations have changed. Producer responsibility has changed. Conversations about safety have changed. From a mental health perspective, there are a few very important themes here, though.
First, impulse control. The Big Brother house is designed to create tension. You are bored. You are isolated. You are watched. There is alcohol sometimes. There is competition. There is flirting. There is conflict. There is no real escape. But even in an extreme environment, safety matters. Impulses matter. Boundaries matter. A moment that someone may think is a joke can still be dangerous. Intent and impact are not the same thing. You can intend to be playful, shocking, edgy, or dramatic, and still create a situation where someone's safety is at risk. That is such an important mental health conversation because many people minimize concerning behaviors by saying, "I was just joking," or "I didn't mean it," or "they knew I wouldn't really do anything." But when weapons, threats, fear, alcohol, or power dynamics are involved, joking does not erase the seriousness of the behavior.
Jokingly, there's no way you could even blow that. There's no way you could even see that as a threat.
Second, This moment brings up the importance of environmental stress. Big Brother is not normal life. It is a pressure cooker, and pressure does not create something from nothing, but it can amplify what is already there. If someone struggles with impulse control, aggression, emotional regulation, or poor boundaries, the house may make that more visible. That does not excuse it. It explains why the environment is risky. And third, this incident is a reminder that mental health conversations also include safety planning. Sometimes when we talk about mental health, people only think of anxiety or depression, but mental health also includes how people manage anger, how they respond to rejection, how they handle alcohol, how they interpret boundaries, and whether they can pause before acting on an impulse. In therapy, we talk a lot about the space between a feeling and a behavior. You can feel angry, you can feel embarrassed, you can feel impulsive, you can feel rejected, you can feel like doing something reckless. But the goal is to build enough awareness to say, I am having an urge, but I do not have to act on it.
Big Brother Season 2 showed very early that this was so much more than just a social experiment. It was an environment where producers needed to pay attention to psychological and physical safety. And that moment between Justin and Krista is to this day one of the biggest reasons why. Now, let's transition into Big Brother 11 and Chima. Chima's time on Big Brother was complicated. And I think that this is one of those moments that people often reduce to just she had a breakdown or she broke the rules and don't really stop to take a look at the bigger picture.
Chima was eventually expelled from the game after refusing to follow production rules, not wearing her microphone, and then throwing her microphone into the hot tub. But when we look at this as a mental health theme, the important word is not crazy. The important word is overwhelm. Chima was under an enormous amount of stress in the game. She was dealing with conflict in the house, frustration with production twists, grief over losing power in the game, and feeling like the structure of the show had become unfair.
It's called the coup d'etat. Jeff has the ability to overthrow the head of household, Chima, and change one or both of her nominees.
Now, whether viewers agree with her or not is separate from the mental health point. The point is that when people feel powerless, trapped, unheard, and emotionally flooded, they can move into what we call a crisis response. That can look like yelling. It can look like shutting down. It can look like refusing to participate. It can look like breaking rules. It can look like anger that is really covering hurt, fear, or helplessness.
In DBT, we talk about the emotion mind. The emotion mind is when emotions become so intense that they take over. Logic becomes harder to access. Consequences feel less important in the moment. The body is activated, the nervous system is escalated, and we are reacting from a point of survival energy versus grounded decision-making energy. That does not mean that the behaviors do not have consequences. It means that we can understand the behavior without reducing the person to their worst possible moment. Chima's situation is a good example of what can happen when somebody feels like they've lost their agency. Agency is when we feel like we have control over our situations and our environments. And Big Brother is something that constantly takes away agency.
You cannot freely leave the house. You cannot call your family. You cannot check the internet. You cannot step away from the game. You cannot fully escape people you do not trust. You cannot even have a private emotional breakdown without cameras watching everything. That is a lot. Most of us, when we have a bad day, can go home, take a shower, text a friend, watch some TV, order comfort food, cry in private, and sleep in our own bed. Big Brother house guests do not have that. So when someone is emotionally activated in the Big Brother house, they are activated in a fishbowl. That matters. Another theme with Chima is anger as communication. Anger is often labeled as bad, especially when it comes from women. People are quick to call anger irrational or dramatic, but anger often carries information. Anger can say, I feel disrespected. I feel powerless. I do not feel safe. Something about this feels unfair. Again, that does not mean every expression of anger is okay. Throwing things, breaking rules, or escalating conflict can have consequences. But from a mental health lens, instead of only asking, why did she act like that? We can also ask, what was she feeling before that moment? What needs were not being met? What coping skills were not available? What support was missing? That is a much more compassionate and clinically useful conversation.
So Shima's Big Brother 11 experience gives us the opportunity to talk about emotional flooding, impulse control, anger, fairness, and what happens when stress builds up so much and we don't have the outlets needed to help manage. Now, let's talk about Ian Terry. Ian won Big Brother 14 and later returned for Big Brother 22 All-Stars. Ian has very openly discussed his autism diagnosis, and this gives us a really great opportunity to observe neurodiversity within the Big Brother house.
Like, it's not my identity, you know? I'm like on the spectrum.
I had no clue.
Yeah. Anything I'm ashamed of, I would search my name, and like the fourth one was Ian Terry Autism.
One of the most memorable moments involving Ian and his mental health is during Big Brother 22, when some of the fellow house guests mocked his rocking.
Looking at you.
Rocking on the end of my bed. That's going to be my name.
Ian would rock back and forth, and some people in the house made comments about it. Viewers were upset because many recognized that rocking can be a form of stimming. Stimming is a self-soothing behavior, and for many autistic people or neurodivergent people, it can be a way to regulate. It can help with anxiety. It can help with sensory overload. It can help with focus. It can help the nervous system feel more grounded. And this is such an important point. A behavior can look different to someone else and still be functional, healthy, and necessary for the person doing it. That is why neurodiversity education matters. Because if you do not understand something like stimming, you may misinterpret it. You may see it as weird, annoying, childish, or attention-seeking, when really, it may be a coping tool. Big Brother is already a sensory nightmare. Constant lights, constant cameras, microphones, whispering, social strategy, people interrupting each other, competitions, loud noises, no privacy, no control over the environment. For someone who is neurodivergent, that can be even more exhausting. And again, we are not saying Ian could not handle the game. He literally won the game. Ian is intelligent, strategic, funny, and one of the most memorable winners in Big Brother history. But that is exactly why this conversation matters. Neurodivergent people do not need to be seen as fragile or incapable. They need to be seen accurately. They may have strengths. They may have challenges. They may have coping skills that other people do not understand. And those coping skills should not be mocked. The Ian example is also a great way to talk about psychological safety. Psychological safety means people feel able to exist, communicate, and regulate without fear of humiliation or punishment. In the Big Brother house, it might mean you can use your coping skills without becoming the joke of the room. When people mock someone's regulation strategy, they are not just mocking a behavior. They may be taking away one of the tools that helps that person stay grounded. That is harmful. So Ian's time on Big Brother gives us a really meaningful mental health conversation about autism, stimming, sensory overwhelm, ableism, and the importance of allowing people to regulate in ways that may not look typical to everyone else.
And honestly, that is a lesson beyond the Big Brother household. If somebody's coping skill is not hurting anybody else, maybe we don't comment on it. Maybe we don't laugh at them. Maybe we allow people to cope with their environments in the way that works best for them. Maybe we just let people start existing. Coping is sometimes harder for some than it is for others. That being said, we're going to start discussing Paloma in Big Brother 24. Paloma left the game early after significant distress, and this opened up a conversation about anxiety, sleep deprivation, and the mental health effects of the Big Brother households. This is one of the clearest examples of how quickly the house can change someone's behaviors.
People sometimes think it's just a game. They knew what they signed up for. But knowing something will be stressful and actually living it are two very different things. You can know Big Brother means cameras, no phone, competitions, and that people will lie. But you do not know how your nervous system will respond until you are actually inside the house. Paloma appeared to struggle with sleeping, and sleep deprivation is a huge mental health factor. Sleep affects emotional regulation, anxiety, impulse control, memory, problem solving, and overall mood. When people do not sleep, everything feels bigger. A minor conflict can feel catastrophic. A strategic conversation can feel like betrayal. And in the Big Brother house, sleep can be hard. People stay up late gaming. There is pressure to be socially available at all times because if you go to bed early, people might build an alliance without you.
That is such an interesting mental health trap. Your body needs rest, but the game rewards hypervigilance. Hypervigilance is when your nervous system is constantly scanning for danger. And in Big Brother, that danger is social danger. Who is lying? Who's working together? Who said my name? Who's avoiding me? Who's all up in the HOH room right now? How come that conversation stopped the minute I walked in the room? That constant scanning is exhausting.
Paloma leaving the game is a reminder that sometimes the healthiest choice is leaving the environment. And I know reality TV fandoms can be harsh. They might say someone quit or couldn't handle it. But from a mental health perspective, leaving can be a boundary and self-protection. Not every environment is survivable for every person at every time. That is not weakness. That is being human. Paloma's experience is also important because it shows how quickly viewers can turn people into characters. On Big Brother, a house guest is not just a person. They become a storyline. They become a villain, a hero, a strategist, a flop, a fan favorite, or a joke. But the person still has a nervous system. The person still has limits.
This is something we should remember every single season. We can critique behaviors. We can discuss strategy and gameplay. We can disagree with the house guest choices. What we can't do is dehumanize a person who is in the game, especially when we can tell that their mental health is playing a factor in this. Paloma's story brings up anxiety, insomnia, hypervigilance, pressure, and the power behind stepping away. But she is not the only example in Big Brother 24 that we have of mental health. We also have Taylor Hale, whose journey on Big Brother is one of resilience.
Taylor came into the house and was almost immediately misunderstood, isolated, and targeted. Other house guests made assumptions about her character. She was excluded socially. She was criticized for things that other people were not criticized for. She became the focus of negative group narratives very early in the game. And what makes this such an important mental health example is that Taylor was living through social rejection in real time, in an environment she could not escape. Social rejection is painful, and I do not mean that metaphorically. Research has shown that social rejection can activate some of the same pain-related pathways in the brain as physical pain. Being excluded hurts. Being misread hurts. Being ganged up on hurts. Being treated like you are the problem when you are trying to connect hurts. Being alone in a house full of people hurts. And Taylor had to keep playing. That is what makes her story so compelling. She did not just survive one bad day. She had to continue existing in the same space with people who had already formed negative opinions about her.
From a mental health lens, we can talk about bullying, groupthink, microaggressions, emotional resilience, and self-worth. Groupthink is when a group of people starts to adopt a belief or narrative, often without critically examining it. And groupthink is something that can happen fast in the Big Brother house.
One person says, I don't trust her. Another person says, I got a weird vibe too. Another person says, she thinks she's better than us. Suddenly, the group has created a story. And once that story exists, everything the person does gets filtered through it. If Taylor is quiet, she's fake. If she's confident, she's arrogant. If she's kind, she's manipulative. If she cries, she's playing the victim. If she stands up for herself, she is aggressive. That is the danger of a negative narrative. Once people decide who you are, they may stop actually seeing you.
This connects deeply with mental health because humans need belonging. We are wired for connection, and when someone is consistently excluded or misunderstood, it can have significant impact on our self-esteem, our anxiety, our mood, and our overall sense of safety. Taylor's story gives us the opportunity to discuss emotional regulation through unfair circumstances, because one of the most impressive parts of Taylor's game was her ability to maintain composure while being mistreated. And I want to be very, very clear here. You do not need to be graceful in the moments of mistreatment in order to receive compassion. You are allowed to be angry when you are hurt. You are allowed to cry. You are allowed to react. You are allowed to have limits. But Taylor's ability to stay connected to herself throughout all the mistreatment was powerful.
She showed that resilience is not pretending something does not hurt. Resilience is feeling the hurt and still not letting it define you.
And if you are to ask yourself who the most resilient person of this season has been, it is me.
She kept showing up. She kept building relationships. She kept playing the game. She kept believing that her story was not over. And eventually, Taylor won. Not only did she win Big Brother 24, but she also won America's Favorite House Guest. And she is arguably one of the most successful people to come out of Big Brother long term. That is such a rare and beautiful full circle moment. The person who was rejected early became the person America rooted for. From a mental health perspective, Taylor's story is about the damage of social exclusion, but also the power of self-worth. People will misunderstand you. People will project onto you. Sometimes a group will decide you are the villain because that is easier than questioning themselves. And in those moments, the work becomes remembering who you are, not who the room says you are, not who the group decided you are, not who people need you to be for their own comfort, who you actually are.
Taylor's story is why reality TV is so much more than just drama. It can show us how people cope, how people survive, and how people rise. So those are 5 examples of mental health throughout the history of Big Brother US.
Justin showed us the importance of safety, boundaries, impulse control, and production responsibility. Chima showed us emotional flooding, anger, powerlessness, and what can happen when someone feels trapped and unheard. Ian gave us an important conversation about autism, stimming, sensory regulation, neurodiversity, and ableism. Paloma showed how anxiety, insomnia, pressure, and hypervigilance can become overwhelming very quickly. And Taylor gave us one of the strongest examples of resilience, self-worth, bullying, groupthink, and surviving social rejection. And that is what makes Big Brother so fascinating. It is a game, yes, but it is also a pressure cooker, a social experiment, a mirror. It shows us what people do with power, how people respond to rejection, who can regulate under stress, how quickly a group can turn on someone, and it shows us how important coping skills really are. So as we go into a new season, I think it's worth remembering that every house guest is not just a character on a show. They are a human being in an extreme environment.
We can enjoy the drama. We can talk about the strategy. We can cheer on our favorites, and we can yell at the TV when they make a horrible move. But we can also hold on to some empathy. Because for us, Big Brother is entertainment. But for the house guests, this is their real life. That is their real nervous system. That is their real emotion. That is their real stress. That is their real mental health. So this season, I will definitely be watching for the competitions, the alliances, the betrayals, the blind sides, and of course, those messy diary room sessions that we love to hear. But I'm also going to be watching for the psychology of it all, because Big Brother isn't just a social experiment. It's also a great observation of emotional survival. And if you love reality TV, pop culture, Disney, theme parks, horror, mental health, and finding the deeper meaning in things that already exist in your everyday life, make sure to subscribe to my channel. Like this video. Go check out my video on 5 moments of mental health themes in Survivor. Let me know in the comments the mental health moment from Big Brother that sticks out to you. And as always, I hope you guys find your magical balance.